not hearing anything. Is anyone saying anything?
How about now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, let's sort of review here. We have a motion to approve all 3 minutes with the understanding that the August 19th will have to be redated as June 24th. Redated as August 19th, sorry, because it is dated June 24th. And is there any other discussion on the 3 sets of minutes? As usual, I have to say they're concise and very to the point. Okay, seeing there's no more discussion, we will vote. We'll start off with Beth. How do you vote?
I'll vote yay on the first one, but then I have to abstain from the second 2.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't think about that, but okay. Anne Marie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Amy?
I am the same. I have to say aye and then abstain from the other 2. Thank you.
Okay. Who am I missing online? Sarah?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mark.
Mark? Davis?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Elizabeth?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
And I am an aye. It's my confusion word. Okay. I believe they all passed. Public participation. We ask that all speakers direct their comments to the board directly and not to the audience. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. No one speaks until recognized. No shouting or profanity, no questions or comments about specific personnel. On these matters, we ask that you go through appropriate administrative channels. We will insist that all speakers and members of the audience maintain civility and respect any divergent views that others possess. Likewise, you may expect that any restriction will be viewpoint neutral. Please do not expect the board to respond to your questions and comments tonight. We take your concerns seriously, and we want to have sufficient time to process and research issues if need requires it. If there seems to be an issue that ought to be followed up on, we may respond at a future meeting or have an appropriate staff member get back to you at an appropriate time. So now that the script is done, I read through the long version of public participation opening. I'd like to enthusiastically welcome all students here tonight. You are always welcome. As a process, I believe there's one particular issue you're going to speak upon. Davis informed me of that issue earlier, and as board chair, I felt that the Ascutney board should discuss it before we delve into anything that the SU board could do regarding policy and so forth. I will take this opportunity to point out that as these young and passionate and informed individuals, we have openings on the Ascutney School Board for a student representative. And I will also want to take this opportunity to point out the last student representative had a profound and impactful effect on the board, as much as any board member, if not more. And so we would like to continue to have a member on the Ascutney School Board, as well as if anyone wishes to join the SU board as well. Okay. After Christine, our illustrious superintendent, I know that the administration has been working through certain issues, and I look forward to hearing about those. At this time, is there anyone here who would like to address the board? Stand up and give us your name, what town you live in, and we will recognize you.
Hi, I'm Ella Kribich, and I'm from Windsor. I'm currently a junior enrolled in Windsor High School, and today I came to address an issue. The things I witnessed on the HACTC bus. On the bus, a group of students have continually used speech that is degrading to women, marginalized communities, and racist, and I feel as though there needs to be actions taken towards this matter. From 10:50 to 11:15, I listened to this group of students speak about rape, sexual assault, and repeatedly use the N-word. This level of sexist speech is offensive and shameful. Early last week, while riding the bus back from the program, their continual use of the N-word was via the penis game. The rules are very simple. You keep saying the word penis, or in this case, the N-word repeatedly, louder and louder, as each person says it until they're yelling the word. It was an offensive and uncomfortable situation. During the ride, I let myself seem as though it wasn't a big deal because in that moment, I did not feel like I could do anything to stop it, and I was afraid of being targeted by the group. Not just with this situation, but many other times things have been said, the bus driver can hear as well as see things taking place, but chooses not to speak up. As the game continued, so did the laughing. While saying the heinous word, all of them said jokingly, taking breaks to laugh in between. To me, that proves they felt no feeling of guilt in the moment. It had only seemed to feel remorse when they knew they would be in trouble. The day following, I worked closely with my principal, and we talked about taking steps that included getting audio and visual from the bus. I know next steps are being taken, but I wanted to make sure my voice and the impact on me was heard. Although I've only been riding the bus for a month, I have quietly listened to the continual and repeated use of this kind of insulting speech. The speech of the group of students has risen to a level where as though I feel as if I cannot be quiet anymore. I'm here today to make you aware of this issue. I find this kind of I feel this kind of speech shameful and degrading. I've been a student here at Windsor for 12 years, and this kind of behavior has seemed to become normalized, and I feel as though it hasn't been addressed enough. It fosters a climate of exclusion, and it needs to be spoken of. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Parents, community members, other students? Even if it's just the shortest of inputs, your input is always welcome. Anyone else online have a public comment?
Bill.
Oh, yes.
First, my name is Erin Rockwood, a member of this community for 46 years. And I think I just want to say thank you to Ella. You are brave, and I'm proud of you. I appreciate you standing up for my children and for other children in the school that would have harmed them and has harmed them. So that's all I really want to say to you is to your face that I'm proud of you. I know I'm proud of your mom, but thank you. So that was it for me.
Anyone else? Anybody online? Any other public comments? Again, thank you all for coming. It was very powerful. Thank you. Christine?
Thank you, Ella, and all of you for coming tonight. I was asked to share what the parts of our anti-racism policies and procedures that we've been working to put into place. So I want to share those with you tonight. And I don't think it's going to get at all of the things that you want answers to, but I want you to know that we're working on it and we're taking steps because hate has no place in our school. Nor do hate words or anything that harms anybody. So before I get emotional, because it is emotional and it's hurtful. I know that it's more hurtful to some, but it's hurtful to everybody in our community, and it needs to stop. So let me get my wits about me here. Okay. Give me just a minute.
I want to thank Christine for this. We sort of had to switch things around, further touch on this point. So.
Okay, I just have to get to the right part. So if you don't know, we have an anti-racism policy and procedures in place in our supervisory union. And we have for the past few years. There was a lot of work that went into them, a lot of thought, a lot of input, and we are working on making sure that we are following the policy and the procedures as a school system, as an administrative team, as teachers, as students. And so this is some of the work that we have completed. And I have to say that having Tracy Price, if you haven't met her, our coordinator of diversity, equity, and inclusion, has really helped our process along, move swifter. And she's a wealth of knowledge and very passionate about this work and a wonderful resource. So she's been involved in a lot of this work. So some work that we completed this summer, we have recruited equity coaches in all of our buildings. So at the high school level, your science teacher, Tim, is the equity coach for the high school. And he'll be a wonderful resource for the work that we're doing in the high school. We had a diversity, equity, and inclusion all-day training for the administrative team and our equity coaches in June to prepare for the upcoming year, to build some baseline knowledge for the group. We reviewed historic timelines. I can't tell you how, I don't even know what the right word is. Looking at all of those timelines at the history of what's happened in our country to certain people is devastating, and it continues. So Tracy led us through that activity. We looked at our policies and practices. So we have an anti-racism policy. We also have an equity policy, and we also have a transgender policy. Our boards support inclusion and belonging for all, which is really important. And we applied these as to our understanding of SU DEI policies. We did onboarding training, and we developed some modules for all staff around trauma-informed instruction and a DEI overview. That is mostly the work of Tracy and some trauma champions. We updated our handbooks and behavior response guides, clearly not enough. So that is continued work that we need to do in this realm. And unfortunately, we learn from these situations that there's more that we can do and will do. We have DEI pages as part of our MTSS website. Tracy came to the board last spring, this board, and we have worked on a instructional leadership plan of action, a 3-year plan, and a lot of the procedures outlined in the DEI, in the anti-racism procedures are embedded in that work and have continual check-ins on how we're doing with those things. And that's linked. If anybody's interested, this is available online. So our plan for the ongoing work this year, we have equity coaches that are meeting with Tracy monthly. They're leading staff meetings monthly in their buildings. Tracy continues to come to the administrative team regularly to help us understand and really have a education on these issues and what we can do about them. So that's ongoing. That happened all of last year as well.
Are we able to ask any questions? And what do you mean by Tracy comes and talks to you about, what exactly does she talk about?
So she comes to the administrative team meetings, and we talk about, I think we focused last year on definitions of what equity is, what's equality, common understanding of key vocabulary words. We worked on agreements as an administrative team, which we hope to bring to all of our buildings with the help of our equity coaches, which really are rules around how we're going to treat each other, essentially. And
You admins or everybody treats everybody?
the goal is everybody treats everybody.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is, but that has to be built at the building level. People have to have their voices heard in that process. So we've done it as an administrative team. We worked on it as with our equity coaches as well. We talk about with Tracy, we talk about problems in practice, things that come up in our buildings that are hard and we have to work through together. We spend time doing that. What am I missing, Tracy?
I'm starting to get into a filter.
Yeah,
I'm really
equity
thinking
filter.
about, like, the last meeting was really intentionally thinking about how are we considering safety and belonging all protected groups, right? How are
Yeah.
we thinking about safety for students and staff of color, right? We're thinking about safety for students and staff who are LGBTQ+. So really getting like nuanced in how we're thinking about equity filter and what that means.
I guess I don't see it on here, so I'm just gonna ask real quick. How many mandatory trainings have you had
3 hours.
for everybody?
Three
This year?
hours this year so far.
Yes.
And January is an
Full
all
day.
day in service. That'll be the first time we're doing that
So is that just teaching staff or is it everybody?
in service. That'll be everybody. Yeah.
Support staff as well are there and we're there.
What about lunch ladies and?
I was talking with Jim Taft about, there are so many, right? It's
Coaches
food
and-
service, it's maintenance. Jim and I were talking about essentially offering something similar to what I did on the first day of return to school to work with maintenance and thinking about Mount Scutney first and then Weathersfield and Kirtland. So yeah, and this isn't about me, right? It's like, it's
No, I
just
know.
how we build capacity
I know.
to lift
Yeah.
all
I'm
of
just-
that. But you're right, yeah.
I know I sound like a broken
Everything.
record, but I've been asking, this is my 12th year asking for every person to be, receive the training.
Yeah.
Everybody who comes into contact with a student.
Yep.
Okay. Meg, and then we need to get back on focus.
Yeah, sorry.
Contracted staff or contracted people? Is that something that can be included in the training?
It can be. I know there are specific trainings that our coaches have to do through the VPA, which are around some of this work. Are contracted, like the behavioral interventionists that work in our school, they can certainly be part of the trainings. Bus drivers, we need to figure that out. So we have some questions to ask around that. Great question, though. Everybody needs to be trained. So a few other things that we plan to do this year. I talked about the group norms across the SU. We want to send out a survey, which will get at some of the culture in our community and the demographics. We want to plan some family community DEI events this year. Tracy's actively exploring racial affinity support for staff and students and how we can provide that. And we've been working for the last year on inclusive hiring practices for our school system. We know that we need to diversify our workforce. That's a priority. The last thing I'll share is this equity ticket, which Tracy has created, and it is, sorry, there's mine here. Staff have it. I don't think it's gone out to students yet.
We have one student, we have 4 responses so far.
But we have a
One was from a student.
and we have a plan to talk to all students in the high school tomorrow, and this will be shared as part of that.
So can you explain what this is? Is it a?
Yeah,
Go for it.
It's a place for if folks, this is also, so you all know, and you'll hear this again tomorrow, is that for staff and students to share if they've witnessed, experienced something, right, outside of hazing, harassment, and bullying. There's a note, like, if this is a potential hazing, harassment, bullying situation, like, please report to your administrator. But this can be things for, do you have questions about, like, questions that something that you want to learn or how to show up or whatever it is, right? Anything that you're witnessing, whether it's graffiti on the walls or curriculum that's being delivered or something also positive, because we want to track that stuff too. So it's really, it has a lot of different, we're seeing how it gets used, but to catch some of the things that are going that we don't know are happening in our schools.
Is it anonymous?
It is, and, right, I
Or
mean.
can it be anonymous?
It can be, yes.
Okay.
That was all of the things that we're doing are all the things that we said we were gonna do in policy. That's like leading all the work plan, because we know that that stuff isn't in practice yet, right? So yes, it can be anonymous, and there's, if you want some follow-up, to include your name or contact information. But it does ask like what school you're in, are you a student, a teacher, staff? Like, so it asks some of that, so that when I get these, because these come to me, then I can go back to, right, the school and the administrators and whoever's in the school to say like, hey.
Does it have to be a student or administrator, or can it be if a parent
It's
heard
not,
something from their kid?
we have it linked to SU web or SU emails, so that's how it's currently,
Okay.
because we figure we'll start with staff and students.
Yeah.
And yes, there's definitely, I imagine having something like this that can be available for community would be really helpful.
Thank you, Christine. Tracy.
Yeah.
Quick word, my 30 years of education, one thing I know pretty clear, anything in education, culturally, academic, takes a long time to change. At the same time, one of the things, nothing jumpstarts the process as much as students getting directly involved. I love it. So thank you all for coming tonight. And with that,
You're done.
they done.
That's next.
Is he here or online?
He's on.
Hello. I'm online. Oh, sorry about the lighting. I can try to fix that. Would it be possible for me to present?
Yes, let me just make you a co-host,
Who
Abe.
is this?
This is Abe Dunn, and he is a former student, and he has done a project on electric charging stations, and he is asked to come present to the board.
All right. Hello, my name's Abe Dunn. I'm a former WSESU student and currently a junior in high school. And as part of a school project, I worked on essentially a project to encourage schools to start thinking about implementing electric vehicle chargers. Climate change is an increasingly developing threat, an existential threat, and it's important for, especially in our local, more rural communities, to start thinking about it. The project I worked on was through a program where I worked with other students who focused on sustainability goals, and I even traveled to Finland and talked with other students there who were working on it as well. The last couple of years, especially here in Vermont, we've seen the effects of climate change with flooding, increased temperatures that cause local issues. And in Vermont, one of our by far biggest carbon emissions is in transportation. It is currently our biggest sector for energy and has been for many years. The carbon emissions per capita in Vermont are more than twice the global average and are the second highest in the Northeast United States. This is per capita, so per person who is here. And a lot of this comes from people driving themselves individually, people having to drive around the state, and that sort of thing. In our state, we only have about 350 or so public chargers and not too many more in places like private businesses or in schools. And we only have about 12,000, little over 12,000 electric vehicle owners. And something that I even remember from not too long ago, back when we had the eclipse, back in the spring, I remember seeing a incredibly long line of Teslas waiting in front of one of the only Tesla chargers in the area for miles. And it's an issue as we are trying to move away from fuel-based and carbon-based resources that I think is really important, and especially important to start implementing in places like schools, which have almost no sort of electric vehicle accessibility. Part of my project was talking to schools, communicating with them about what can be done, and that is why I'm presenting now. And during it, I took a few different surveys of mostly staff from many local schools, including Windsor High School and other SU schools. Here are some of the results showing that most teachers would support the installation of electric vehicle chargers. Over 75% are seriously concerned about climate change, and over half would like to own an electric vehicle. And one of the things that hampers a lot of people is, especially here, is a feeling of uncertainty of whether they would be able to get places, able to charge it, and even in places like your workplace. And my sort of goal with what my project's been is to talk to and encourage schools to think about electric vehicle chargers. I know that for many schools right now, that is not exactly a possibility in the immediate future, especially with school budgets. But I just want to get school boards, people who can really make this change, start thinking about it and just have it on their minds, understand that it's an important issue. I've also put together a whole Google Doc with a lot of other information that I plan to send out to some schools. I would happy to send it out to this school. That has all of the research I've done, suggestions that I have if the school were to move on to implementing chargers, and it has just a lot of good information and all of my research that I've done. And yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk to the board about, and thank you for listening and giving me the time to talk about it.
Any quick questions for Abram? I think Angie had one.
No, I didn't. I accidentally hit my hand, sorry.
Okay.
Looks like Anne.
Anne Marie.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Abe knows of any ways to get companies to sponsor having these chargers at our school. Like if if you can contact Tesla and offer them spaces in our parking lots, if they they can make money off of them. Then is there any way to do that?
Not entirely sure on that sort of thing, but in terms of getting sort of support, if that's kind of what you're asking, there's a lot of different grants that you can get. The state has many different types of grants, which I can send along information on. The processes aren't too complicated. I know a lot of individual companies do as well. Tesla, I don't know if it's actually like a thing where you make money, but they are very helpful in getting things installed and making sure things don't cost too much, especially for institutions like schools.
Abraham, I would appreciate if you did send that along. If Christine?
Yep.
We look forward to looking at it. I know that's something we've discussed at least at the local district level, and along with parking in general. It's a pretty serious issue within Vermont, like you stated.
Definitely.
And I'd like to thank you for taking the time to present this.
Thank you. I appreciate giving the chance to.
Thanks, Abe. Well done.
Very well done. Christine.
Yes.
Transportation bid evaluation.
Yep, and Larry did make it, so he's gonna help me. Larry, you're here. Are you still driving, or are you able to talk a little bit?
I'm here.
Okay, let me pull up the presentation. Switch gears. Hold on a minute. Let's skip down to.
You guys can see how exciting this is.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to get us started, or do you want to just do it?
I can do it. Can everybody hear me?
Yes?
Okay. So our current agreement ends in June 30th. We have to go out to bid. We're required. It's been 5 years. We went out to bid on August 30th. The RFP closed last Thursday on September 19th for the 3 members of the SU Budget Committee board members, which is Elizabeth, Sarah, this is not news, and Ryan from Heartland. This is not news to you, but we received the bids back, and the transportation policy requires the superintendent to submit to the board for approval. So next slide.
It's small, sorry about that.
So it's small, but I've seen this 100 times since I've done the math. So this is a bid eval. This will look very familiar to you as far as it's what the same evaluation grid we use for E-rates, the same evaluation grid we used for the central office lease a couple months ago. So the bid was for 3 years, and Student Transportation of Vermont is our current contractor. They're the first ones listed. The second one is Butler's Bus Service. So 5 years ago, there was no bids. Now we had 2 bids. So that you can see is a regular routes column. Student Transportation of Vermont came in at $3.241 million over 3 years. Butler's came in at $3.136 million over 3 years. And then if you look at athletic field trips, there was quite a discrepancy. And that'll make more sense when I go down the point system. So then I gave 75 points for regular route costs, 15 points for athletics, field trips, extracurriculars, etc. Vehicle age, our RFP required that no bus older than 5 years old. Both bids came with brand new buses, so they each got the perfect score of 5. Neither bid came with electric buses. I can speak more to that if there's questions about it. So then I have to score the bid. So the regular route bidding is pretty easy. Butler's won the regular route bid, as you can see, by roughly 2.5, 3 points. Then for extracurricular field trips, I had to come to a number. I had to come to one number so I could compare them. And what I did was I just took a typical trip, 60 miles. Again, this is just an example. So it's 30 miles each way. Let's assume it takes 6 hours, using the 3-year average cost, because their costs go up every year. And I picked the middle one. I could have picked either one. And I said, that's 500 trips over 3 years across the SU. Remember, this is across the SU. And as you can see from the bottom table, Butler is pretty much half the cost when it comes to extracurricular and field trips. And then for the minimum cost, which I didn't include in the bid, STA is higher for minimum cost. Butler's is $125 minimum cost, everything. I didn't include that. I just put it in there for informational purposes. The last thing I'll speak to as far as the bid is concerned, we put out on our RFP 3 things: the regular routes, which everybody's familiar with, the extracurricular and field trips, which should pretty self-explanatory, and then special needs transportation. Butler bid on that. STA did not submit a bid for that. They said they would negotiate that depending on what our needs were. But due to the fact that STA has been our provider for the last, 5 to 8 years, I wanted to respect them and include the bid instead of throwing the entire bid out because they didn't follow the RFP. So that's pretty much the math right there. Anne Marie, you had a question?
I don't have a question so much as just to say, even though Butler's quite a bit cheaper, I think you might want to check with the nearby SUs as to their service quality. Springfield and Woodstock both use them, and there are frequently unstaffed routes with parents having to drive their kids into school for weeks at a time.
Yeah, so I can speak to I haven't heard back from Mascoma yet. I have heard back from Woodstock and officials at Hartford. What I've heard is that COVID was really tough. And that the last year was pretty smooth, and that Woodstock was very happy with their service last year. But again, I can't speak to Springfield. I haven't heard back from them, and I'm waiting to hear back from White River Valley too.
I would definitely wait to hear back from Springfield because we haven't used the bus for Woodstock for the past year, but Springfield, I see posts on Facebook, from informing parents that for this next week, bus so and so is going to be out of service, and that continues to go on this year, way past COVID.
I also think that hearing from White River Valley would be a good indicator as well, because like Windsor Southeast, they have sending districts as well as non-sending districts within their SU. So that might be a good input.
So it sounds to me like the board would like us to do more investigating before making a decision.
Well,
we do have 2 bus company representatives here if there are any questions.
Yeah. I mean, Anne Marie has a good point. And seeing Larry has calls out to 2 other districts to get input, I think that would be fair to wait. But I do know that the process has to end at some point.
Yeah.
So depending on Larry's perspective, and I will respect Larry's perspective about timing, I would be willing to call another meeting to discuss this if there is some sort of timing issue. But I would prefer to hear from those 2 perspective SUs.
Yep.
Elizabeth.
I've got a question that doesn't relate to cost, but I am so glad to have 2 representatives from the bus companies here, because I've had burning questions about our bus system for the last couple of years. And one of them is, do the buses, or do they not adhere to our supervisory union policies regarding things like student behavior or conduct? And why or why not?
Well, I
do.
Yeah.
How is that?
Go ahead.
Because historically, we have had lots of problems on our buses, and so that's my first question. My second question is are the drivers supposed to be policing behavior?
Not necessarily. The drivers, as you know, all the buses are equipped with digital cameras front and rear. So the driver's responsibility is more to report what's seen. If there's a fight or something, they're certainly going to intervene to break something out. But the reporting process goes from the driver to the building principals.
Right. What happens if a driver is the perpetrator of egregious behavior?
I'd like to know about that.
Okay.
That would need to be reported to the local management, or even better, directly to me.
And what if it's based on hearsay?
Well,
I mean,
the camera's going to tell the truth. So if it happened on the bus, the camera's going to witness everything.
Okay, just wondering.
The cameras are only working when the bus is on.
No.
Well,
they stay on for a limited period of time after the engine is disabled, for about 10 to 12 minutes. They continue to record.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And what about Butler?
What's the question?
The question is, do your bus drivers adhere to district policies?
Yes, as well as our own, but yes, we follow the school district policies, yes.
Do you have cameras going
We do.
front and back?
Yes, we actually have 3-dimensional ones that go from the ceiling to the floor. So there's no place on the bus to hide, quote unquote. So yes.
I mean, from an educator's perspective, and I've ridden the buses before, especially when I was, I ran a alternative behavior program. And the reality is that the main responsibility, and this is just my perspective, the main responsibility of the bus driver is to drive the bus.
Of course.
And then I think there are situations that arise in which there's a need for the school district or the SU to put another person on the bus when issues arise that are outside the scope of just a driver to be able to supervise.
But I guess part of what I was asking is whether our policies extend to time on the bus or whether we need to have separate bus policies, and whether that's would be a step that we could take just to double back and ensure that it's all covered, or whether, because I'm not sure whether it's, do the cameras have sound?
Yes.
They do. Could we get volunteers to ride the buses to act as monitors? Is that a feasibility?
I think that would be something in which the particular school district, or in terms of if it is a special ed transportation, or that would be up to the district to organize.
Yeah, of course. I'm
Yeah.
not asking
Okay.
whether, of course, I'm not asking whether the bus company could organize that, but is that a possible, in the realm of possibilities, I guess?
We have in the past put staff on the bus when,
But could you have a community volunteer?
they go through, they would have to go through the background check and,
Well,
you know,
yeah.
all the
Yeah.
things needed to be a volunteer.
We have policy and procedures for getting volunteers.
Yep.
But it's, of course, the issue of getting the volunteers and having them go through the process. But that may be something that could be a possibility. But I think to talk about one of your implied questions, is it within the policy, is it implicit or explicit whether the bus companies have to follow those procedures? I think that's something that's really up to us to investigate.
Yeah, that's why I'm
and to see if changes can be made to make it explicit. Any other questions, Elizabeth?
Nope, that was it. Thank you.
As usual, you bring up wonderful points.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions? Beth?
Yes, speaking as a mom, we've dealt with several issues of stuff on the bus. And I think it was very clear to me as a parent that the policies were followed on the bus as on the school. There was no leeway or sway around that. And it was very much the bus driver and the bus company was not involved. It was very much the administration of the school was the one that were dealing with those issues overall. And I do remember when my kids started riding the bus, some of the para educators, did do split shifts kind of thing. And somebody rode the bus, because I can't fathom driving a bus and dealing with student behavior. That seems absolutely I know I could never, ever accomplish that in my life. So God bless them that they are even out there doing it.
Thank you, Beth. Does anyone else have a question regarding the bids or for our esteemed bus representatives?
So as a board, we'll be able to review some of the questions that Elizabeth had before making a decision.
Absolutely. We will have a discussion. I believe most of it would be in executive session regarding the actual contract, and then we would come out of executive session to vote. That makes sense. Because a bid process and discussing bids is allowed in executive session.
And I think, there are questions of policy that Elizabeth brought up that, like you had mentioned, we can discuss at a local level and see, whether it's policy, whether it's implementation, how we can ensure that our SU district policies are being followed the way, with the quality that we want them to be during student transport.
Thank you, Davis.
Do you just want to check with Larry on the timeline?
Yep. Larry, you want to touch base with me on the timeline? And then we will.
Yeah, so you want me to, so just a little direction. So I'm still doing reference tracks. You want me to keep doing those and then get back to Bill with everything I've heard of it. Obviously, the people who have gone back to me so far has been 3 different school districts. It's all been positive. If I get back from River Valley and Springfield, you want the good, the bad, and in between, right, Anne Marie? So a full panoply.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just was remembering. I'm not sure why Woodstock's saying that they're okay with it because I have an email. Well, I can't find it now, but I'm looking for an email from the beginning of the school year where the main route Woodstock 1 was unoperational for the first part of the school year because there was no driver. And then in the spring, I remember a lot of the times I believe it was the Barnard route was canceled. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I can't speak to individual routes. I can just tell you what Sherry said and what my counterpart Jim said.
Did you ask them about route cancellations? Because I would
he said
press them on that matter because it just seems like there have been an awful lot of route cancellations in
yes,
in Springfield.
Verbatim. I'm not remembering verbatim. I could show you the email, but it was this year was a tough start, but it's been better lately, and last year was very smooth. That's what Woodstock said. I mean, by the way, the other thing too, I would say is a lot of the stuff when it comes to not fulfilling things that happen or things that go unfilled with our current provider, they don't make it to the board, right? So like there's certain things that, if Albert Bridge wants to take their kids to Vince back in 2022, STA said, no, we had 2 buses out, can't do it. It doesn't go with the contract. Butler filled it. Windsor High School has taken many trips to Boston, and STA has said no, and Butler filled it. It never goes to the board because STA's been good to us, we've been good to them, and we've solved problems together with using Butler too. So, I guess that's my other response is, I guess our what do you call it? We'll do an internal reference check, I guess, with all the principals with our current provider.
So Larry, my concern about timing is not necessarily just when you hear back from other people, but I don't want this process to go on beyond what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I think the interesting about the transportation policy is, and probably because it's a multi-million-dollar deal, this is the board's prerogative. I do the bid. You guys can see the numbers. If STA had won the bid lost the bid by 1 or 2 or 3 points on the process sheet on the bid eval, I would stick with STA even though they lost the bid because it's a bigger gap than even I was surprised by. Then I think it bears some thinking about, especially in this current environment where like Anne Marie says, do you want to save money or do you want to have what you feel is the best service? And then I see $200,000 and I see 3 teachers or, I know it's all the SU assessment. It's always a big deal when it comes to SU budget, and every district pays more of the SU assessment than the other ones. And I know that this is just going to increase your SU assessment. But if you guys are okay with that, that's your prerogative. I mean, that's what's interesting about the transportation policy. It's not like E-rate where I get to make the decision.
Davis?
Yeah, just two quick questions. One, Larry, when it sounds like some of this is email correspondence, would it be possible when we do have, it sounds, Bill, like you're proposing we do some kind of a special meeting just to cover this? Well, we're still waiting for feedback.
Well, I know the budgets are being constructed. I don't want to push this out further than what the budget committee is comfortable with. I mean, that's my main concern.
Okay.
We have this information. no, we make this choice in a timely manner. So these figures can be put into play on the SU budget. So if we, at the same time, it still is only September.
Yeah.
But I am cognitive of the budget process, and I am depending on Larry to let me know, or let us know what sort of timeline we should make.
Okay.
But I am more than willing to, because I know we had another special meeting regarding the last bidding.
Yeah.
We did.
So
I would throw out there, Larry, if you do have hard copy or just like some sort of feedback that we can review, like have a packet for us to look at before because it sounds like that's really the thing we're waiting for is feedback from other districts who've used either bus service. So if we had that to review, and assuming, I mean, just based on what you've said, it sounds like our goal would be to arrive at a decision before we get to an October SU meeting, if possible. Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
So maybe what we can do is, if Larry were to let us know once all of that feedback has come in, can get it to us to look at, and then within, I would say something like within a week of all that feedback being in, we aim to have a special meeting and close this up.
Yes.
Sounds like yeah.
I think that makes sense as opposed to pushing it out to October and eating up a large portion of a meeting when we have so much policy work to look at anyway. So.
Exactly. And then Larry, does it sound all right to just have some kind of a feedback packet for us to review?
Yeah, I mean, I can do it any way you want. I mean, two of them are over the phone. One of them was over email correspondence. So those I can get you the verbatims. The other ones, we can have the person come, I guess, if they're willing to. The other thing we could do is since you mentioned staffing, particularly with, I know that there's representatives from both bus companies there. Does anybody there want to speak to staffing and what's in the bid?
We need staffing. I don't understand the question, I guess.
Bus driver staffing.
We took over this contract 10 years ago, and we haven't missed a route in 10 years, whether it was COVID or non-COVID. All of our routes have been staffed, our drivers are well paid, and they're very happy. And, I'm a little, to be honest with you, I'm a little offended, Larry, that made the comment that we turned you down on a trip. In the event we would have turned you down on a trip would be because you're contracted up to 2 spares for your contract. So you probably had multiple vehicles out. And when they called and asked for another one, the amount of vehicles that were sitting in the lot were already being utilized by Windsor Southeast.
Yeah, I'm speaking to trips from Boston trips from the Windsor High School that was turned down by STA in February 27th, December 4th, December 28th, April 17th. So I
could pull trip logs and show you what was out that day. There's a very unlikely chance that you didn't have multiple vehicles out that day if we were telling you we couldn't cover, because we have standby drivers, we have spare drivers. So, I mean, let's compare apples to apples. If the contract calls for 2 spares and you're already running 2, possibly 3, and you ask for another one, we're gonna tell you we can't do it.
Well, we have had times when we haven't had drivers for routes.
Recently?
Yes.
Yes.
And it's not often, I will give you that, but there has been an occasion. And sometimes when I have to call Mike and deal with something, the response is, I don't have any drivers. So I think staffing bus drivers is probably difficult for everybody, and it was extremely difficult during COVID. So I just wanted to be clear on that. It has happened, not frequently.
So to speak at it, I think from my perspective and from what I'm hearing from other board members right now, price is price. At the same time, we're looking at getting as much information as we can regarding quality as well. So we'll give everyone a fair shake based upon
for sure
the information we have.
And just to Larry, I mean, I'd be for the conversations you have on the phone too. I mean, I trust you, so we don't. If it's a hassle, I don't feel like we need to call in like a ton of individuals, but just anything that there is record of, or if you can kind of fill in the blanks or give us like a summary of. I like having something to read over, to prepare for this kind of stuff.
I'm happy with Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
As well. So, okay. Thank you, Larry. Sarah,
Yeah.
you have a quick question?
I was just gonna second with Anne Marie. I hear constant things I mean, Larry knows I brought it up in the budget meeting, but I hear constant things about Springfield. So I'd really like to hear their input on cancellations. I mean, I just feel like we can't have that on a weekly basis, period, regardless of the price. So I'd like to really hear back from Springfield, especially before we make this decision.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. With that, we will move on.
Thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
It's helpful.
Okay. Policies.
Thank you.
Thank you all, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, good time to go. Here come the policies.
C8A, local wellness policy. This is the second reading. I think to move things along, I'll do my Cliff Note version of it. I think this is a great policy. The nursing staff worked very hard to meld
We did.
past policies along with the new ones.
I'm sorry, we didn't go through all of Christine's. Oh, that's at the end.
It's
Never mind.
later. It's coming.
Sorry. Don't we usually do it the other way?
Yeah, but we switched it around.
Sorry.
We switched it around.
Change the
Oh,
screen.
yes, I sure can. Yeah,
Yeah.
I sure can. Thanks, Angie. I don't think we need it right now, actually. Everybody has the policies. I have hard copies. Somebody needs them.
As a second reading, does anyone else have any comments on this?
Wellness policy?
Yes. It's very well researched. I love the fact that the links are to the information is built within it. It has
It's very thorough.
yeah, it's very thorough.
Yeah.
A rationale section, reference and resource sections. I mean, I think we have another reading to go through, but I don't see anything.
Okay. They will be happy to hear that.
Yes.
Yeah, that looks good to me.
Conflict of interest.
So just so you know, Lori went through the current policy and the policy through the SBA, and she kindly, whatever's in red was in the policy, and then whatever's in yellow is the new added language from the VSBA.
And is that based on the new open meeting law? And conflict of interest law?
I would assume, Elizabeth, but I mean, it's what's on their site for current.
Do you know how old it is?
I will look. I haven't looked at it in a bit.
Is that
The VSB review date, August 15th.
Yeah.
Would that be the date?
Is it on the policy itself?
I believe it says
Oh, yeah.
VSBA review date on the
24, 23?
Yeah. These are all partly updates from the new conflict of interest and open meeting law bill or law that came into effect as of July 1st.
So some really great use of color here. Any rationale, I believe I understand it, but for the removal of and its administrative designee, that's removed because.
Because that's what the VSBA told us to do.
Okay.
That's all.
Well, it does make sense in that this is a board member conflict of interest. The and
Yeah, it
its
narrows it.
administrative designee doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And the highlighted yellow, is that new
Yes,
language?
from the
Okay.
VSBA, yes. Yes, Lori went through, which is really helpful, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate that this new version is a little bit more prescriptive about the steps to follow.
Yeah.
That new language. Always nice when they do that.
Yeah, there doesn't seem a reason to have a procedure to add on to this because the procedure is part of the policy. Which isn't always a great thing, but I think in this type of policy, it is more of a working construct. Comments, suggestions? A1, board member conflict of interest. Okay, thank you. 3, B2, volunteers and work study students. First reading as well, getting right into it. Same wonderful use of color.
Well, they made this nice and short.
Right. Now, is there procedures for this already or?
There are for the
Okay.
old one.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to update them.
Yeah.
Once this is passed.
Yeah, this.
I don't think they'll be that drastically.
No,
different, but
this looks as if, that there should be, clear and concise procedures, especially for volunteers. One thing I know in Hartford, one of the issues they have, and hopefully I addressed, was how to keep track of who has volunteered already, so that if there's a need for volunteers, the callback procedure is really simple.
yeah.
So, so,
We used to have that.
yeah, we set that up in the, I set it up in the database. I'm kind of hoping that I get some feedback on how well it worked.
Is it like, forever? Cause I know our volunteers have to go through a background check, right?
No, it's a yearly.
It's a year, annual,
database.
okay.
So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
and it's helpful to have it right in the SIS.
Yeah.
So that when you want to search within a certain, school,
It was.
area, then it's helpful to be able to pull just from that school.
Yeah.
Because as part of the Hartford policy, or the Hartford procedure, volunteers have to be signed off by building administrators. And so it really makes it that this person, unless they volunteer for multiple buildings, is set for the year for that particular building.
It's, it was, whatever, I mean, I don't even, any idea how long ago it was. But it was part of our community outreach efforts. Because, so we would contact them once a year, and then we would know whether, we needed to.
So volunteers?
Yeah.
Yeah, to do their background checks again, like annually?
No, it would allow us to, keeping them in a database allowed us to just touch base with them once a year.
Yeah.
And if they didn't want to continue to volunteer or be called on, we would know that it's time to step it up.
Is this the
for more
kind,
volunteers?
is this the kind that, that involves a fingerprint?
We do it through our, the school secretaries can run the background check right on their computers.
So you don't have to go to
It's
the
not the
police
form,
station anymore and pay money?
Yeah. Which is part of the procedures, I believe. Just looking that up.
Right. But that procedure probably would have to be updated as well.
Yeah. It has to be updated.
Any other questions, concerns regarding this policy? Moving right along, option-based response to violent intruder drills, fire drills and emergency preparedness. Now that's a whole lot of words for fire to replace fire and emergency preparedness drills. And so I feel I have a dim understanding of option-based response.
It means that in the moment, you can decide what to do.
Okay.
So if there's an active shooter,
Mhm.
you can, depending on the situation and the information provided, you can evacuate. You can shelter in place.
Mhm.
You can fight back at a certain age level. So it just gives the teachers in the moment the opportunity to do what makes sense, because the research of school shootings has shown, like, sheltering in place doesn't always lead to the best results if you could exit the building and evacuate and escape. So it just, and our staff is trained in all the options annually, and they practice, and the drills need to be appropriate for the age level when they're talking about them in school. So.
What about, you said the staff is trained for appropriate age level?
Yeah, and they have resources that kind of guide the conversations. You know, it's gonna look different in kindergarten than it's gonna look in 8th grade.
What about for students with different physical abilities?
Yep, that is also discussed, and there's have to be plans in place. If there needs to be an evacuation or an, escape, that has to be taken into account.
Yeah, so
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal. From my understanding, based upon what I've read and the articles I've looked at, it really isn't a building-wide option. It is the
classroom.
It is the teacher option. A good example is if a teacher on the 3rd floor versus a teacher on the 1st floor, their options are very different. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's not a responsibility they love having, because it's pretty scary. And, but we've practiced it. We have some staff who've been traumatized that have difficulty in the drills themselves, so.
Yeah.
I will say that I think part of this one is we all have to have up-to-date EOPs, emergency operations plans, which we all do now.
Good,
We
because
did
the deadline's
not.
right here in the.
It's in the policy, and those have to be reviewed annually with our law enforcement. So they are all finished, which was a year-long endeavor for 2 of our schools. They had very outdated, literally on paper, emergency operations plans. So now they're digital. We use the state template, so they're up to speed, which is great news. Kudos to our administrators. Paul helped a lot. Our school resource officer, Chief Frank, fire.
Did we have anybody, just as a very quick aside, did we have anybody go to the governor's school safety?
It's his 30th. This year, I believe. I think it's the 30th. We've gone in the past, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And we talked about it at our ad team meeting. I think Brian and BJ are slotted to go. We kind of take turns. I thought it was next week, but I could be wrong.
I could certainly also be wrong, for sure.
It's good. I mean, it is a good conference, I have to say. I've been a couple of times.
Is there considerable money available for future training and grants and so forth?
In school safety?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting.
There is, I think the governor's safety conference is free to go to.
No, I mean for staff training.
Oh,
If-
we pay, like we use Alice as our platform,
Okay.
and we have to pay a fee for that annually, which provides us the training, online training and resources that staff can use after that. But for grant money, there could be some. There probably is. I just am not in the know currently.
Okay, if there's no more questions, about option-based response to violence. Think about it this next month, because this is the first reading. Number 5, another first reading, employee unlawful harassment.
That's kind of a funny title. Unlawful. Who's are they being harassed unlawfully, or are they
Yes.
unlawfully harassing?
Both, yeah.
Okay, okay.
So as you can see.
What harassment is lawful?
Yeah. That's,
It's a good question.
some significant changes. Again, a great use of color, especially in the designated person area. Moving names and putting titles in. This looks like a significant overhaul, but
But the law changed significantly last year.
Yeah.
3D is where, 3D is where it talks about it not needing to be severe or pervasive.
Yeah. But it's not just not severe and pervasive, it's also that the person at whom the action was directed does not have to be the reporter of the action.
Right.
So if I said something awful to Tracy or treated Tracy poorly, it still affects Davis. And so Davis, it doesn't even have to have anything to do with me. Davis can make a report.
Looks like it's under 2C. Good point.
And it doesn't have to be at the place of employment either. It's also pretty awesome.
to see or not to see. Sorry. Any questions, concerns with this first reading?
The only note that I'm seeing is near the bottom. I think the substance of it, there's no corrections I would make. I am noticing down near the bottom here where it has David Baker's name crossed out.
Yep.
Probably want to add Christina. And then do we have a non-discrimination coordinator?
Currently, it's Katie.
It's Katie? Okay.
Yeah.
I've been told not to put names in the policies, but just positions,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
so
Fantastic.
that if they change,
Because
we
things
have to
can
update
change.
it. Yeah.
For
But I-
good reasons or bad reasons.
Right.
And then that you're locked into that individual, right, who no longer works for you.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. In that case, I would,
We'll put
I
the
know this is minutia, but yeah, I can just get rid of the colon.
Yeah.
It looks like there's
Yeah.
must be some of there.
We'll get rid of the colon in
Awesome.
the names, and we'll put in, although under the
Where's
non-discrimination
your
coordinator,
colon?
we could put director of student support services.
Awesome, that's great.
Yeah.
Where's your colon?
It just where it says superintendent colon, that would imply there should be in there.
Yes.
So,
And under.
no colon, just the superintendent, whoever that is. Perfect, makes perfect sense to me.
So this is for anybody who receives money from our from anywhere in our supervisory union?
Any employee?
Well, I'm asking what the definition of an employee is.
I would say it's anybody who receives money from our supervisory union. Does it define it in the policy?
It does, yeah. So for the purposes of this policy, any person employed by and subject to direct supervision of the district or supervisory union. So it sounds like that would not include contracted folks in this policy.
Actually, what I was wondering is whether if there was a student who was being paid by the district or supervisory union who was harassed by another student, would they be covered under this policy?
They would be covered under our HHB policy
A student policy.
Or prevention of sexual
Yeah.
harassment policy.
or Title IX. Yeah.
Well, as we know that neither one of those policies covers everything. And so I guess I was wondering whether, if a student was harassed by another, or not harassed, let's say, if a student had something yelled in their area and they were an employee of the supervisory union, that's actionable. But if they're a student, it's not. So
Under this policy, the way that it's written.
So under this policy, would they be protected? While as a student, they wouldn't be.
I don't think so. Because they have to be employed.
That's what I'm wondering.
So if they're paid,
So is employment simply being paid? That's my question.
The language of the policy says that supervised. And so I don't think being paid by a district or an SU does not automatically make you
an
an employee. At the same time, if a student takes a summer job, say to help paint, then yes, they would be covered by this policy. Because at that time, they would be
employed
an employee of
and supervised.
and supervised.
If we hired them to babysit for one of our school board meetings,
They would get a stipend typically. So, I mean, I can ask. Yeah, no, it's a good question. Good question.
And then I think it would depend on when they were harassed as well. Were they harassed as a student or were they harassed when they were an employee?
well, they're always a student.
Not during the summer. They're not legally enrolled in any school district during summer months. So. And so if they're working during the summer hours as a employee of the district, which happens often,
It does.
then they are technically the employee, not a student, because they don't have an active enrollment. And I think they would definitely be protected by this policy. But that's a good question.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Field trips.
A district employee or a person engaged on work or service.
So this,
So that would,
you ready to move on? Yeah. Or not? Okay, because I want to be respectful of if there's other things that you guys want to discuss. Okay. Windsor Southeast Revised Field Trip Procedure. Policy. Field trip procedure for policy. So which is it? Is this it?
Well, Lori has both in there, I think. She's got the policy and then she has
Oh,
the
yeah,
draft procedures.
Okay, I scrolled down to.
That's okay.
But I like the fact that the procedure is in here because the procedure is the meat of this.
Well, thank you, Hartford.
Yes, thank you,
sent
Hartford. Yeah. I have to lay out that this has been a real hassle for Hartford teachers. Especially seeing this I don't know if Larry's still on here, but there's no digital way to send out. Hartford has no digital way to easily send out permission slips and get them back in a timely manner, which limits field trips on a short basis. It even makes it difficult within the week. The real heart of this, the reason for this policy is the medical piece. Because it stems from issues where students with medical needs have had issues going on field trips without proper medical planning.
Making it a challenge for them to attend.
Right, making it a challenge to attend, but also creating dangerous
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah.
One of the sticking points is the elementary schools having outdoor classrooms near but off property. That's where it's caused some issues. And so these classrooms go out to them, very similar to what ABS does, to their outdoor classroom, which happens to be off property. How does this policy relate to that situation? And so I think it should be addressed in some way in this policy so that, for example, at ABS, when the 6th grade goes out to their outdoor classroom, which is not on ABS property, how does this policy affect them? Are they going to break policy? Because it technically is a field trip off of school grounds. There has to be some wording in here to clarify that.
Or a separate policy for outdoor classrooms, because that's totally different from a field trip, I would say.
I'm not going to disagree with you, but I think within this policy, that needs to be addressed. That it is a different situation.
We do have the walking field trip form that goes home every year in the packet, I believe, which allows kids to go off, be able to walk off site and engage in things. So maybe I can have Lori get us a copy of that, we can look at it.
But also, is that an exemption to this policy, or is it because this policy addresses field trips?
Right.
And so I just think we need to be really clear so that there's no issues. Amy.
I was just going to mention the walking field trip. I think that would, because parents have to sign that. And I think that would be covered. That going to the outdoor classroom. Because at least in Windsor, when kids went either down to the library or over to Paradise Park, that was covered in the walking field trip.
So I'm going to push back a little bit on this, just because this has to do with medical liability, this particular policy, that's where it is. And so I think that somehow we need to address that within this policy, so there's no someone help me here.
Ambiguity.
Thank you. Within, because you just can't have a permission slip that overrides a policy.
I recommend taking a look at that permission slip, because it might include information, that when the parent signs off on it, stating that the school is aware of any medical implications or needs of the student.
Yeah. At the same time, policy can't, a permission slip can't override a policy. So I think within this policy.
But it's not.
Okay. But it is. So, because there's nothing in this policy that addresses a walking field trip. I'm speaking from, I'm not trying to be a hard ass, but I'm speaking from experience at Hartford. This has created, this almost exact policy has created some real stressors at the individual schools because it doesn't address what happens during a walking policy. Davis, hang on. Beth, you've been waiting patiently.
I think this, going to the outdoor classroom is not a field trip. It's like saying recess is a field trip. We are Heartland. No, let me finish. Heartland goes off property almost daily to their outdoor classroom space. We have set, agreements in place with the town. We do not have signed forms. We are in radio contact. We have policies in place that we know the nurse knows where students are, the administration know where students are. There are safety policies in place that are put in place, but it is not a field trip because it is another space where learning is happening that is like adjacent to the school right there. Yeah. So it's not, I don't think even qualifying it as a field trip is just complicating the matter.
Right, but Beth and Amy, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think you're absolutely right. But I feel that somewhere in this policy, that has to be laid out, that this policy doesn't cover.
Because it's not.
Because it's not a field trip.
Separate policy.
Well, that's the point. Within this policy, because this policy calls it field trips. And so unless that's defined in this policy, and if a student at a outdoor classroom off campus, a situation happens, then we are liable because this policy doesn't distinct between what some may call a field trip off base and someone doesn't call. It's just when you start getting into legalese, somewhere here, this has to state that. And I think this might be a situation where we might want to get some legal help.
Okay.
Looking at this.
Sure.
Pietro laying out that we have outdoor classrooms off school grounds and to have a lawyer look at that.
I would just be really, really, really hesitant in like putting up any sort of roadblock from teachers being able to, because if we're talking that nurses need a 2-week, head of time list of students going out there, like we not in like lunch orders 2 weeks ahead of time and things like that, just to go out to their weekly outdoor classroom, it's going to stop teachers from going out there. So I would just say, be really, really cognizant of any limits you're putting in place to stop that.
So, but Beth, my point is, I don't want that limitation, but I also don't want the school districts to be liable in case something does happen in this policy.
Bill, we're going to have to agree to disagree because I just don't see that liability because we have agreements in with the town, how the property is used and who can use it and when and all those kinds of things. So I just don't necessarily agree that the liability exists. That's all.
No, I don't know if their liability exists either. I just want to make sure that it doesn't exist. And the language in this policy makes it clear that it doesn't exist. And I think that's where a lawyer comes in and able to give them their opinion about how this might play out in a legal situation. Because at Hartford, the assumption is it doesn't exist. But that's what got them in trouble in the first place. Because there was a medical issue.
And they didn't have permission or the right
and the school assumed that single yearly signature took care of it. And it didn't, because the policy was ambiguous. And so I want to make sure, I think this is a great policy. I just want to make sure that certain situation doesn't present a roadblock. So it's perfectly clear, unlike in Hartford, where it's not perfectly clear. Where the school board says one thing, the superintendent said another, and the principals don't know what the heck are going on. So that is absolutely clear that a outdoor classroom is not a field trip. That's all I'm asking. That someone looks at this and makes sure that legal barrier does not exist. And so all the pieces gel together. The one field trip for walking field trip covers it. And it is clear in this that one covers that particular type of situation. That's all.
So just so I have it and I get it straight,
Yeah.
what you're looking for, I'll bring the walking field trip
Okay.
next time so you can see it. And you want to make sure this policy is clear that the outdoor classroom does not count as a field trip essentially, and is not covered under this policy, but is covered under the walking field trip permission slip.
That it's perfectly clear that is the case. Yes.
Just want to throw this out there so we're not seeking to define something in the negative.
Yeah.
We're seeking legal advice to define what a field trip is, correct?
Yes.
Because that's not in this text anywhere. I mean, I just looked at it several.
It doesn't exist,
I've been
so.
rereading and reading as we've been talking, and it
That would
doesn't.
be clear, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's
okay.
The high level of this is we need a definite definition of a field trip that conforms with our what sounds like our shared concept of what a field trip is, so that there is no ambiguity. And then the other thing, just you made one comment earlier, Bill, that the purpose of this policy is medical liability.
Mm-hmm.
That is also extremely unclear in this text.
Right.
So, I mean, if you're stating from experience in Hartford that is the purpose as it is implemented, we might want to also,
Do we need language around that?
poke legal about, medical liability, because if that's the intended purpose, it should probably be clear when you read the policy.
Yeah.
Or maybe even give it that title, medical field trips and medical liability, or medical liability with field trips.
Well, it is, again, to sort of piggyback on what Dave's is saying, it's not necessarily to state the negative that this is about medical liability. It's to make sure there is ample time for nursing staff to gather their information they need from the parents and to organize those students who need medical assistance during the day, making that time available.
Isn't there a policy about that?
That's this.
The nurse?
It's in the procedures.
It's in the procedures,
It's in the
yes.
procedures. If you scroll down, it's either.
Yeah.
I'll run it through. It is not a VSBA policy, it's our own, so it should go through legal anyway.
Is this the first reading?
Yes, I believe it is.
And I'm sorry, I'm kind of emotional about it, and I believe that we all have the same intentions, we're just discussing it differently.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that it's not throwing up asinine red tape.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of what it's done. The middle school in particular really struggles with this because it's great to get middle school kids outside as much as possible. And this kind of creates a small roadblock for that.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, Hartford Middle School and High School have fewer options on outdoor space than Windsor Southeast Supervisor does.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. School age entrance.
It's back.
What did happen with the
students? Well, they really struggled to find a licensed psychologist to be able to give the diagnostic assessment. And when they went to the doctor's office, the doctor said, we don't do that, schools do that. So I talked to Bill and Nikki Bach, the chair of the Heartland School Board. Those parents were from Heartland. And we used we agreed to use our in-house school psych to give the diagnostic assessments. And those parents had to pay that person directly for their time, which seemed like a good compromise. And I would say they were willing, and if we can do that, we should do that going forward.
So I think the end result,
Yeah, what was the end?
what we actually did, is really what the policy should be. And so if a parent feels that their child is ready earlier, within the month of September, reading through what the state of Vermont has put out. One, they say, it's really up to the districts. Two, definitely don't widen the age range. So that was pretty clear. In other words, don't make a larger time, and that having a waiver procedure within the policy is acceptable and actually quite helpful.
Yep.
So sort of pretty much from the school districts that I've seen and read through, September 1st or the end of August is pretty much a date that's being used. And so looking at September as birthdays, as the waiver range, having the parents get a diagnostic assessment, and which is not an easy thing to do, but having the school district offer that, not charging them, but making sure that the parents cover the fee entailed by the SU. Yes, Davis.
You mentioned August and what we were saying, and this outlines just September. The way this policy is written, are we drawing a hard line on September 1st?
No.
Or
drawing a hard line at October 1st.
At October 1st, okay.
Yeah.
September 30th.
September 30th, okay.
Yeah. So it's a 30-day waiver procedure.
Okay. Yeah, oh yeah.
It's in the yellow on the bottom there.
What was the outcome?
They were found to be ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't think we have in that yellow language that, if a school licensed psychologist administers, the parents will pay that person directly. Do you want that in here?
I don't know if we want that the parent pays that person directly. I think it would be better if the parents reimburse the SU for that, any expense incurred.
Okay.
That way it's really cut and dry that, yes, we are providing that service, but whatever expense that we incur, they will cover.
Got it. Always providing that service?
If possible.
If possible. Well, that's what I'm like.
Yeah.
Should that wording be in there too, when possible? When exhausted all other, I don't know.
Well, I think it's cut and dry that if their child doesn't, one of the real issues here is the fact that there's a lot of money involved in this, not in getting the assessment, but for parents. If a parent has a child who's born September 3rd, then they're looking at another year of pre-K and possibly daycare after for a private pre-K. So that's a lot of money. And so if they're able to get that child within a full day kindergarten, then they could save a lot, which gives an incentive for parents to sort of push the envelope, so to speak. I've experienced and heard about parents who bring in their toddling 4-year-old and say that this student's ready for kindergarten when they're absolutely not. Or even a 5-year-old. If a student turns 5 on October 1st, then that's months make a difference at that age of child development.
I think, yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. I think my point kind of is, like, how much can our person handle? Like, at what point would we not be able to give that service? And what would that look like for the family? Are they missing out? Like, how, like, if we are committing to doing this service, if the person's paying for it, are we always saying yes? That's,
And it's gonna depend on, I mean, we were able to do it in the summer because our
Right.
school psychs are more available in the summer. They had the time, they don't always have the time.
right.
So there probably needs to be, and I don't know if this does, I haven't read this as closely as I should, there should be some date cutoffs as well about if you want, you need to apply by so forth.
There is something there. I think I was.
But also, I think we're probably looking at 1 to 4 cases a year possibly. Davis?
Yep, so it does,
Yeah.
so it must be submitted to the principal, your child would attend no later than July 1st the upcoming year. So there is a
Yeah.
July 1st
Okay.
deadline to get the waiver
Okay.
application. And my comment on that, because I appreciate what you're saying, Megan, we don't want to, I mean, yeah, it's only 4 cases a year, sure, but we also don't want to create a situation where we're creating like a stream of work directly to somebody who may not have the bandwidth to actually.
So if you do read, so by July 1st, we need the assessment done. So we are is what this is saying. I'm just
Okay.
saying, so that is not in the summertime. That would be June when school is still in session.
Yeah.
May, June is when this assessments would be done. If we are saying by
Yeah.
July 1st, that this needs the assessment as part of it.
We
I'm
should
just-
change that to July 30th, I think.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
that
that's a
would,
good point.
yeah, that would help.
Does this take a lot of time? I'm sorry.
No,
It's
it's
about an hour,
about an hour
Yeah.
assessment. Yeah.
Oh,
and then an hour to write the report. It's about 2 hours.
So it's a couple hours.
To the
Yeah.
point about the specifically, I actually like that the policy doesn't specifically outline that we are using the school
School staff,
psychologist. Just because that creates that gray area where
Right.
if the school
Mhm.
staff was like, had for some reason, personal or professional or otherwise, didn't have the bandwidth to do it, we're not just immediately saying like, well, this is the option.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was, yeah, just what I wanted to comment on. I think it was a good thought.
Yeah.
And actually the policy as written sort of leaves that space.
Yeah.
I think that in procedures or like kind of protocol around it, yeah, that could be the person you go to, but
Yeah.
I think leaving it open to policy makes sense.
I mean, I have particular experience in this because Daniel was not on the board for age. He was born in April, so it wasn't a question of his age. It was a question of placement. So when he went through the kindergarten entrance day, which is not a particularly rigid, the feedback we got was not what Tammy and I saw in Daniel. So we spent $1,000 because we can, and we hired somebody to do an actual assessment. And the information we got was extremely helpful for us and the teachers to know that our perception was correct about his ability and his development. It'd be great if we do that for all pre-K students, but it's too expensive. Not every parent has $1,000.
That's very expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's, we did a longer assessment. But it's to hire someone, it's $500 an hour.
Yeah.
Or $350 or whatever. But,
I just don't really philosophically understand. I mean, as the entire state of Vermont does not recognize gifted individuals, are we not because it's an equity issue, because if we started acknowledging gifted individuals, then we would, rural states can't provide for gifted students. But is this not, in a way, it may be a budget issue or a convenience issue for parents, but is it not in a way philosophically,
it really all depends. A gifted individual doesn't necessarily mean that they are developmentally mature enough to start a full day program. And so it's, yeah, there is a one-on-one situation which I understand, but
I'm not suggesting that it is that way for everybody, but I am suggesting that it is that way for some.
yes,
And,
which is why if it happens and they take if the parents have the child take that assessment that we were able to offer, it's very clear when a child's ready because it lays out all their skill levels broken down with it. Yeah. So, yeah. And it, at some point when we're able to move forward and have full day pre-kindergarten, that issue goes away. So at Hartford, for the most part, they've expanded their full day pre-K. That issue has stopped. They have a hard cutoff, and it doesn't really matter because 5-year-olds born in September are first in line for full day programs.
Our pre-K full day here.
yeah, that's what I thought.
Right.
But not everybody goes to it in our.
Yeah, but the bandwidth of how many students you could take
Is
also really limited.
Yeah, it is.
We have at Hartford 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 full day classrooms.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We have 2.
No. Okay. Sorry it takes so long on this, but I think it needs work.
Just gonna hit us with one more minutia that might give them an extra day. The original policy says no later than July 1st. Instead of doing July 31st, let's just do August 1st, because then that gives them the entire day.
I think that's a great
August
idea. Very good. I hate big dates.
Too small.
Yeah. Plus the fact I get confused of which month is the 31st and which month is the 30th. So
They all have a first though.
the first, they all have a first. So there's no issues with that. Okay. Superintendent report.
Okay,
Wait,
are we there?
no,
No, you've got something
review
else.
annual board survey results and set board goals.
Would you like me to get those, or would you like me to send you those results from the board survey? I checked, 10 people have taken it out of 12, which is great.
Okay.
Do you want me to go print them for tonight?
Or can you just show them?
Yeah, I can show you, actually.
Yeah.
Why didn't I think of that? Hold on.
Unfortunately, it's almost 8:30. That's probably why.
Yeah, because my brain is, I just have to pull them up for you. Give me 1 second.
I don't know why, but Mondays are really 2/3 of the week.
Yeah. Okay. 1 minute. Just have to make my
You're
computer.
7/16 when you don't feel well.
She's a trooper, huh?
Yeah.
Have you had COVID before?
Yeah, once before.
So you know that pushing yourself right after you have it totally backfires and makes
I did not know that, but.
So does that mean that she can go home?
Tomorrow. Let's see,
You should go home,
You
Tracy.
should go home.
You should go home.
Okay.
You don't have to ask.
She's like, I'm out of here.
No, you want it, but you look like you're fake.
And you have to drive. Sorry, it's coming, guys. It's just giving me a.
Use the force.
Yeah. Yeah, some people do, but I
I
totally
once I
did.
had it, you're like, good.
Oh,
Well,
nice.
it's the week after COVID that you have to be really careful of.
Even if you're negative.
Yeah.
Yeah, phantom.
You need to rest, yeah.
It's not so much that you may get COVID again. It's you're opening yourself up to flu,
Yeah.
cold, and if you ever get those the week after, then it's worse than it should be.
Bye, Tracy. Okay, we have 11 responses now. So this is, somebody else just took it, so
Oh.
this is almost 12. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, let me pull it up.
Somebody just forgot to hit send.
It's totally fine. I appreciate that she's taking the time.
That's me.
That's an age thing, or for
No,
me,
it's my
it's just,
nephew.
Oh, yeah,
I,
it was, who is that?
I've
No,
been
I
noting myself, especially the last couple of years, writing emails and not hitting send.
Oh, I've done that. Oh,
I check my drafts
Oh,
frequently.
bad,
to
yeah.
make sure I don't-
My trick is
I
making a
think I need to
calendar
start
events
doing
and
that.
inviting Bill
Yeah,
into
yeah,
them.
I do.
Yes.
So I get, Bill, I'm coming
And like
around
not
to
even
this.
Yeah, not even a
Looking.
title with like what the meeting's for, just meeting in your calendar and you have no idea who it's with.
Yeah.
This is
I've got,
all
on
right.
Thursday, I have in my calendar, I have no time, no last name.
Yep.
Just Allison.
I mean, I got some guesses.
I've got lots of guesses. That's the problem. I've got about 5 guesses. Fortunately, it is with 2 L's. So
That'll help.
they're gonna sit down a little bit, but.
Oh, my gosh, yes, I've done that too. Put the time.
Yeah.
Doctor's appointment, but for whom?
All right, are you ready?
Yeah.
And I can certainly send these to you after if you want to look at them more closely.
Sure.
So as you know, there's categories. This is creating a vision for the education for the community. Blue and red or agree, strongly disagree. So this one is board regularly discussing where it should be headed in 3 to 5 years into the future. We have 2 people that disagree with that.
Oh, so the 9.1 is a single person.
This 9.1 is a not sure. We have a strongly disagree, and then we have a couple of disagrees.
Okay.
So that's good to know. I'll just go through them and then we can go back to the ones you want to look at. The board engages the community when establishing the future vision of the district. We have a lot of agreement there. 1 person that disagrees with that. The vision is focused on what we want for our children. It's written in terms of the expected results for student learning rather than the activities the district will engage in. That we have agreement on, strong, and all 11 people agree on that one. The vision is far-reaching, not limited by the walls of the schools or the borders of the district. There's some dissent on that one.
Yeah, somebody's.
1 person, yeah.
I tend to be really negative when,
It's you, Bill? You're
I don't
doing
know,
all
I
the
can't
negative ones?
remember, but I tend to grade things harshly,
Okay.
especially when self-reflecting.
Establishing policy parameters is this section. The board adopts and follows policies to ensure the school resources are used appropriately and effectively to meet the district goals. Somebody disagrees and somebody's not sure. Majority of people agree. There is a process for soliciting and responding to input from staff and community. This one we have some dissent on, so one probably to look at a little more closely. How do we get that input? Which we've been talking about. So that's not a surprise. The board delegates responsibility for implementing policy to the administration. We'll agree on that. The board has developed an ongoing system to review and update all policies every 3 to 5 years. Yes, we have.
I can't imagine.
We're working on it.
Someone disagrees. We do it all the time.
This section is works with the superintendent to provide educational leadership and to manage the district to achieve the mission. So this one is the board has established an excellent working relationship with the superintendent, which I also agree. I love working with all of you. I feel like we are pretty honest and open and transparent, and that helps. The board has established clear priorities and goals for the superintendent. So we have some agreement and some disagreement on that. And that is something we could talk about.
Exactly,
Yeah.
50-50.
Yeah.
fact, no.
No, it's not.
No,
It's
it's
no.
agree and strongly agree and disagree. So two people disagree and one person strongly disagrees. So, I mean, specific goals, yeah, I mean, we have the strategic plan that we're trying to implement, but yeah, agreed. The board annually evaluates the superintendent. Some people, 4 agree, 2 strongly agree, some are not sure. 1 strongly disagrees and 2 disagree, and I would say I haven't been evaluated, so.
We just
Right.
objectively.
Yeah.
I would love to be evaluated and
Yeah.
get some direction on how I'm doing and where I can improve, so, yeah. I would love that.
So yeah, you and I need to meet and
Yeah.
go over through the
Yeah.
other process, and
Yeah. I would
think
love
this
that.
actually will help.
Definitely.
And
Uh,
I depend on Elizabeth to keep reminding me of that.
It's just helpful.
Well, it is September.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
helps, helpful.
Yeah.
It helps everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, you brought it up before I could. I mean, I think that would be good to
Yeah.
get the ball rolling on.
I would agree. Monitor progress towards the vision, assure accountability for results. So the board regularly evaluates progress toward meeting established school goals specific to student learning. We've got a majority agree, we've got some that disagree, and 1 that strongly disagrees. So I think that is, you know, we certainly share the goals and how we're doing a couple times a year in terms of academic data, but we can talk about different ways of sharing more data. We're going to disaggregate it this year. Angie's on that. The board regularly evaluates progress toward meeting established school goals specific to systems operations. Some agreement and some a little bit of disagreement. The board regularly evaluates its performance in meeting established board goals. So we have some disagreement there. That looks about half and half. So that might be one to look at. The board assures adherence to policy. This is just a not sure. We have some new people, so that's appropriate, I think, but mostly agreement. Develop, adopt, and monitor a budget to support the vision and assure strong oversight of district finances. Got a majority in agreement and 1 not in agreement. The board develops budget parameters and expects the administration to create line item details. So again, a little bit of a couple of disagreement on that. The board engages the community in setting budget priorities. Some agreement, some disagreement. Certainly working towards including more people in the process, which might help. The board is attentive to the district's ability to pay. 10 agree and 1 disagrees. The board assures that internal controls are in place to protect public funds. There's agreement on that, and not sure, and some of those are, you know, all the accounting practices we have in place and people signing off each month, so we do have those in place, and we audit every year. The board carefully monitors expenditure reports to assure that the administration is addressing issues with revenues and expenditures. It's not sure, some agreement, and 1 disagreement. So those would be our quarterly reports.
I think understanding what that means
Yeah.
is where
Yeah.
where the issue is.
Yeah. Engage the community in supporting the education of students. The board engages the community meaningfully in understanding changes to the education system needed for today's learners. We've got 2 not sure, 2 disagree, and 7 that agree. When monitoring progress, the board examines district data by gender, race, and socioeconomic status to measure the success of all students. And we know we haven't been doing a good job of that. That is on our list for improvement this year. And we have a tool that helps us do it, right, Ange?
Yeah.
The board keeps the community informed of district performance, agreement, and some disagreement on that. We do have the data dashboard that Angie's has taken on now that Brittany's gone, to kind of shares with the community, but certainly something to look at. The annual budget passes on the first try. Agreement on that, except for Heartland this year. meet legal responsibilities. The board stays out of staff and student issues, which may result in quasi-judicial hearings before the board. Yes, do a great job with that. The board handles quasi-judicial hearings in a fair and orderly fashion and arrives at clear and fair conclusions. From people not sure, which would make sense for new members. The board handles collective bargaining responsibilities effectively, seeking to find the proper balance between assuring a highly qualified and motivated workforce and recognizing the taxpayer ability to pay. Agreement on that. I think we're almost there. You guys are being great. Operating legally and ethically, the board adopts and assigns a code of ethics that outlines expectations and commitments. That is linked in the survey. We've done that at local board meetings. Weathersfield has signed off. No, did we do it in Manascutney? It comes from the VSBA.
Yeah.
It's essentially all of these things, but I can certainly get that to you. Board members respect the fact that they have no official power outside of the actions of the full board. And the board adheres to open meeting law and carefully follows statutory guidelines for executive sessions. Yes. Board members are respectful to other board members, administrators, staff, and community members. Yes. Board members have the information needed to make informed decisions and understand the potential impact. So we have one person who disagrees with that. Regular board meetings are efficient and generally last no more than 1 to 2 hours. Working on that. We're getting there. Once a board decision is made, dissenting board members respect the board's decision even if they continue to disagree. Yes. And board members annually participate in board development activities. Got one coming up that I'm going to share with you tonight. There's some agreement, some unsure, and some disagreement on that one. And board members understand that they are community trustees to assure quality education and that taxpayers get a great return on investment and that they are not operators of the schools. 100% agreement on that. So I think I would like to send these to you in digital form so you can kind of look at them and we can work on which ones we're going to focus on. If that makes sense.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you all for participating in that. I appreciate that.
Just one quick question about the quasi-judicial hearing one. Does anybody recall the last time this board was involved in a quasi-judicial hearing?
Not this board.
The SU level?
That's
the local level. So the local ones, yes.
Yeah.
But
I was just interested to see the response to that because like I feel like before you would ever get to one at the SU level, you're more likely to see that at the district level, and I certainly in my time haven't seen one at the district level. So I was just curious about that.
They're not fun.
ABS, we've had.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
They're very unusual, you know.
Yeah.
One was paying for driver's ed, but they were in another school. And because
they were in another state.
because we were sending school at that time. She said, she's really an ABS student, you should pay for it. She was going to Hanover.
Yes.
And the answer was no.
No.
The answer is no. Yeah.
All
You
right.
made that choice. We're not obligated by law. P-card board resolution?
Yes, this is a document. And Larry put this together. I don't know if he's still here. He's still here. So what we have done to mitigate some issues. Do you remember when we changed ordering for staff and we can only order from certain vendors and we have to go through an online form and that limited staff to be able to go to Walmart and catch the deals and it limited principals who need to pick up something on the spur of the moment. So what we did for a short period of time, a year, the principals had credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
Most districts, and Larry's here, have P cards, which are a little bit different than credit cards. They are not tied to an individual's social security number, which all our credit cards are right now. And the P cards give us more control. It's like a purchase card. They let us go in and look at what purchases have been made. And so what we would like to do is collect the credit cards from the principals and issue P cards through the Bank of Montreal, which is a lower interest rate and gives us more control at the supervisory union level.
And
Larry, did I get it all?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. And all I would say is over 20 SUs and districts use this exact vendor and with P cards. And I learned of it at a VASBO meeting where they this kind of solves some of the issues we're dealing with the corporate credit cards, where we want to give principals flexibility and through the principals, teachers flexibility, but we want to do it in a better way for our business office. And we think that this will do it. And for the principals, because as Christine said, it's not tied to their social security number, et cetera. It's just based on our financials.
So we need a vote of the board, and then we need the board chair to sign this document if the full board agrees.
I will take a motion to approve the use of the P card through a resolution.
Amy so moved.
Second, Davis.
Any discussion?
It doesn't sound nefarious.
Okay.
Makes a ton of
Amy,
sense.
how do you vote?
Aye.
Anne Marie?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Elizabeth?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Did I miss anybody?
Beth.
Beth is, I don't see Beth on here anymore. Nope, she's not.
Beth?
She's not.
Okay. And so that is
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
10 ayes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
9 ayes.
Yeah.
Amy, Sarah, Anne Marie, and Mark are online. There's 4 online. Some people are online and in person.
Amy, Anne Marie, Sarah,
And Mark.
and Mark.
Yep.
9. Thank you.
I confuse everyone by doing both.
Oh, that's okay. Keeps us on our toes, right? Thank you very much. That is super helpful for us.
And that gets us to
My report.
administrative report.
Woo-hoo. Thank you. It's not too long, so don't panic.
Christine, I just want to thank you for sending the slideshow out in advance so that
You're very
it makes a big
welcome.
difference.
Yeah. I tried to do it a week in advance, but I wasn't able to this time. We had too much going on, but I will continue to do that. So, okay. That's not the, you already saw that. I'm just gonna have to go back to the beginning real quick.
Larry?
Yeah, real quick. I had a thought since I think Christine's going to go over the transportation RFP very quickly this time because we already went over it. But would it please the board to have Anne Marie and Davis work with me separately on this transportation bid in a quick fashion to get back to you for a special meeting? Does that sound like something you guys want to do?
Sure.
It depends when. I'm only available after 4:30 during the week.
Okay. So if it works for you, if I could find time after 4:30 during the week, you could. I don't think it's going to be a lot of meetings. It just would be. I have some ideas of maybe a smaller group setting. Anne Marie, it would be Davis, you, and me, and we'd have Brian come in for a quick meeting, and then he would leave, and then we'd have Steve come in for a quick meeting, and then he would leave, and then we could report our findings back to the board. Does that sound like a good idea?
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
be willing to do that.
Thank you.
Larry, if you want to include me, I'd happy to sit in if I can.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, thank you.
Yep, that's a great idea.
Okay, moving on. We have one procedure to peruse this evening. It is the procedure for the selection of library materials. If you had time, I know Megan had some questions and we've gone back and forth and I can adjust. We can put more in. This was created by the librarians across the SU. They got together last year during early release days and really worked hard on these procedures. I think they're good and solid, and we will add clarifying language.
I had asked for definitions on some of the things, the musty, like, I asked for definitions because reading it, I wanted clarity on what some of the words meant and what that means. But I understand that the librarians really took a lot of time at doing this, so I hope they're okay with that adjustment.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but it's just someone that not being a librarian,
Yeah.
not knowing these terms, I just felt like it was.
Yeah.
It's important to understand the policies are for everybody.
Yeah.
It's similar to how, say, other nursing staff work really hard on that. At the same time, that policy isn't for nursing staff, really, it is for everybody.
For everybody, yeah. So I'll make those adjustments.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of updates. I have up here the Act 183, the yield bill, and these are all the things that come out of that bill, just for your attention. Commission on the Future of Public Education, which I'll report out a little bit on in a moment. They set the yield and the tax rate, added new revenue sources. The bill also includes the recommendations on reserve fund balances, standards and district quality standards. And there's a lot of pieces to it. I think knowing that the ballot language has changed, I don't know if you're aware of that. We're going to go back to what it was in sharing the per pupil cost increase. This one, I don't know, adjusting the application of the CLA, making pre-CLA tax rates closer to post-CLA tax rates is one of the things that was in this bill, according to the VSA, which is helping us go through these bills. And the excess threshold spending is set at 118% of the statewide average district per pupil education spending for FY25 plus the NEEP inflation. Larry, what's that stand for? NEEP inflation. I've looked it up. I can't remember what it stands for. Something.
You're muted, Larry.
It's not CPI, which doesn't really help define something.
Right, but similar, I believe, right?
It's
we can Google it.
Yeah, it's not CPI because it includes other things. CPI is only a specific like food and core CPI. I think NEEP is more encompassing, includes more things.
So I wanted to, yeah.
Can you go back?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to look at the last one.
No exemption for voter approved bonds after July 1, 2024. Yep. So I think that means that's included in your per pupil cost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was at a VSA meeting, a Vermont Superintendent Association meeting, where we were going over these acts. We talked a lot about the Commission on the Future of Public Education, and I've been attending the meetings as best I can just to stay informed and see what's going on. By December 15th, the Commission on the Future of Public Education must submit a report on short-term cost containment recommendations. So it's a report on what we can do in the short term. So the superintendents met, we tried to come up with some recommendations. These are some that stood out among the ideas that were presented. One, I don't know if you're familiar with this, because I certainly wasn't, but there are TIF districts.
It is a total mystery as to how that came to be part of the ed fund.
It is, though. There are districts that are TIF districts. In fact, we were at Killington for our meeting, and Sherry said the water you're drinking was paid for because it's a TIF district, and it pays for infrastructure things, so not education necessarily. So one of our short-term cost cutting measures was we shouldn't be doing that out of the ed fund. So that was one. Always remove unfunded mandates. And we did talk a lot about having a statewide teacher contract. I don't know how short-term that is, to be honest with you, or a statewide transportation contract in an effort to contain costs. But I don't, again, know how short-term that is. But those were kind of the things that came up. I mean, there was talk about tuition in independent schools. That didn't make the top, we were kind of stickering, that activity, the top ideas.
When you say statewide teacher contract, who would negotiate?
Well, that's to be determined. I think the thinking was it helps in budgeting. You're going to know what you're
Yeah. But who would do it? That's my question for you to take back to the
I mean, Bill
PSA.
would be awesome at it.
Because we haven't had a lot of luck with our healthcare being
I know.
negotiated
I know.
statewide, so
I think
just saying.
that one of the benefits of a statewide teacher contract is we're not stealing from each other, district to district. based on-
I understand what all the benefits are. There are lots of benefits.
Yeah.
And it's been on the table for years,
Yeah,
but
it just hasn't
also,
happened.
but also who would do it?
Right, yeah, right. So I will keep you updated on what I hear and, as we go along. The other bill, Act 139, just for your information, which is the early reading bill, there's a lot in it. I won't go through all of it. It goes into effect July 1, 2025, so we have this year to prepare. I don't think it's funded, but,
Hey, unfunded mandates.
I just wanted you to know that Patty Gray, who works at Curriculum Instruction Specialist, as part of the CIA team, has created a local literacy team. They started meeting in July. They've outlined the stages of work that are gonna happen based on the requirement of the law. So we feel like we're in pretty good shape to be able to enact all the things in it come next year. A lot of it is having a screener for K3, reporting out which kids are, proficiency levels in those grade levels to the AOE, training teachers on giving and admin on being able to administer that assessment, and determining best practices in teaching literacy. So we are moving forward with that, and I'll keep you updated. This is my response to the query to the superintendents regarding regional high school idea, as was requested at our board meeting. And I post as regional high school. I didn't say mega district. I don't know if I got the language right or wrong. So what I heard back from the surrounding, and Hartford wasn't at the meeting, so it was Springfield and Woodstock superintendents, reported back, current legislation does not allow for this as it's currently written. I don't know if that is true or not. Elizabeth and I were kind of talking about that a little bit before the meeting tonight. It sounded like some articles of agreement don't allow for this. I mean, I know there's language because I reread ours. If you're going to close a school, you have to involve your community, and there's process involved. So if you're going to merge schools, are you closing one? Like if you're merging high schools, are you closing your local high school and merging into a different high school? And does that come under the articles?
These are all details that are so far down the line.
Yeah.
Yes. Who knows?
Who knows?
We are so far from being there.
Yeah, but these are their words. I'm reporting what they said. There was a feeling this might be premature conversation, probably because it feels like it's so far down the road. We don't have a plan. And then Sherry Sousa recommended that board chair reach out to Jill Briggs Campbell, kind of to see if the agency has any plans around this. She has said that she has talked to Jill Briggs Campbell, and really there is no master plan at this point coming out of the AOE, but encourages us to do the same. So I'm going to go back at my next meeting, and I'm going to ask this question. If the Southeast supers around us agree in principle that we want to merge. Now, do you want me to say a mega district or a regional high school? Because I think they're probably more inclined to talk about a regional high school.
I think at this point, talking, and this is my feeling, I may be,
I'm gonna
I think talking about a regional high school would be the first step of looking at.
Well, if we're asking superintendents, I think we should ask both. And I also think that we should get a meeting together in the next month where we just ask that simple question to the boards of those districts. Because again, if we don't agree in principle on whether it's a good idea, then there's really no point in going further. All of those details don't matter.
Is that, like, who gets the boards together for that meeting? Is it a survey that's put out? Is it an actual physical meeting? Who poses the question?
That's sort of the issue.
I'd be glad to do it. I really don't mind doing it. If it's.
I mean, I'll do whatever you want.
There is no actual procedure for it.
Okay.
I mean, I have been talking to members of those boards already about it anyway, so.
Okay. that would be great. Let me know if I need to do anything. I'm happy to help. Okay.
And, if you want a group of us to be on that invitation, then I'm willing to
Do a virtual meeting. Well,
I was thinking we would have a virtual meeting with all of the, whatever members of those boards wanted to come.
Okay.
And we simply ask.
but you have to warn it, right?
Of course.
Yeah, okay.
But that's not a big deal.
No, it's just not, not at all.
It's just asking a couple of questions, and then having the possibility of a facilitated conversation if we agree that it's a good idea.
Okay, sounds good.
That's all.
Okay. I did the anti-racism policy update, so I'm gonna skip through that. I'm just gonna shared this out at local meetings. There is a VSBA October conference on October 24th and 25th at Lake Maury. I know Davis is going. It is the afternoon on the 24th, and then there's a celebration of public education that evening with dinner, and then the next day is the full day board training. So if you are interested, just let Lori know, and she will get you signed up. We're gonna do we've done the bus RFP, but we have a little bit of financial and operations update. The first is, woohoo, shout out to Larry. He is in DC tonight and this week.
Nice.
Yes.
Oh, it's right now.
Yes, he drove there today. He was like, I don't know if I'm gonna get there, the traffic left him, but he made it, and he helped greatly with the bus conversation, but he received a scholarship to attend this course in DC. And
Awesome.
it's a certificate in education finance, which is what he's trying to get. It's an interdisciplinary certification combining finance, economics, and leadership with public policy and administration. Using a cohort model, the program helps participants build practical fluency in how management decisions, wide-ranging policies, and resource allocation intersect to impact student success across multiple contexts, including their own. So shout out to Larry. He is really taking on his role with enthusiasm and seriousness. He took that test I shared with you this summer. He took a test. He's one of 6 in the state. I can't remember what it's called. It's around education finance, and he passed it. So he's just.
Hey, Larry.
Yeah.
While you're there, can you ask around about how other schools fund education equitably?
That's a good question.
Other states.
There's a joke that there's small schools and then there's small states, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how much.
It's not a joke here. Well, Larry, we hope you have a successful week and a safe trip back.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty cool. All right, this is the Windsor Southeast SU General Fund Summary. I'm gonna just share a little bit. Larry walked me through this before he left. The beginning fund balance of $733,983.98 is listed there. Is what we had in the fund balance at the end of FY23, and that's a combination of years past. It built up a little bit. We brought in revenue of around 11 million-ish, a little bit more than that, and spent about the same, giving us a difference of $79,069.53. We know we have to assign $238,225 of the fund balance because we listed it as prior year revenue for FY25, if you recall that a long time ago. Leaving us with an unassigned fund balance of $567,704. We like to have a little bit of fund balance in case something happens, like some expensive move-ins. I mean, it's always good to carry a little bit of a fund balance. We would
Like the
never carry more
transportation
than.
contract comes in higher than budgeted for.
Yeah. Yes. Where the food service balance comes in a little higher than expected, which does happen sometimes. We can cover that. If it got to more than 10% of the budget, Larry would have a discussion with you with recommendations on what to spend it on. So how'd I do, Larry?
That's correct.
Pretty good? Okay. All right. This is just to keep you updated. The SU Budget Committee has met. The first meeting was September 6th. The minutes and the presentation are linked for you to peruse at your convenience. We had a second meeting Friday. Larry linked the agenda there for you. Our next meeting is the 4th. We should have more information on the special ed service plan by then. And Larry, you had a lot of information on all the departments under admin and ops. We're waiting for some special ed numbers to come in. He did put in the transportation at the lower bid, just in case, as a placeholder, I believe.
Yeah.
For our meeting last Friday, but that can be adjusted if the board makes another decision. So we are on track with those budget meetings. Thank you, Elizabeth, Sarah, and Ryan from Heartland has stepped up. And Larry's doing an incredible job. We already did the transportation RFP. Speed through that. This is just to let you know that these are those district quality standards that we have to report out on. We're going to report out in June. Those are all the things that are listed that we have to report out to you on. And Larry's going to come up with a template to help us do that. So for both the district quality standards and the EQS standards. And we will get those out on the website as well. And that is the end of the admin report.
Thank you. Next agenda.
Yes.
I think that's
Next agenda. All right.
much already filled.
It is. We have some policy work.
Yeah.
That's going to continue.
Can we have a discussion of the anti-racism policy and
I
procedures?
think you already put that on, didn't you, or not? Or was that?
I didn't for tonight. I can put it on for next month. I didn't put it on for October.
October, okay, but did you put it on for November?
That I put on the curriculum development and coordination policy.
So I do think we should look at it
Oh, we have to,
October.
okay.
So, yeah.
We're supposed to look at it annually and we have not looked at it since we passed it.
Well, I mean, I was serious about when I told our illustrious members that joined us, nothing really kicks things into high gear with like having students become involved, so.
Yeah. I can share too, as part of this situation that's happened. Kate is working on an anti-slur policy that we will hopefully be bringing to the board. So maybe it's part of the anti-racism, maybe it's a separate policy, but she's been doing her research, looking around with the help of the VPA. She's taken lead from some of the bigger districts in the state that have this anti-slur policy. No districts around us have it, but we want it. So,
but as a Scutney board member, I mean, I'd like to hear from an administrator, so. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for this group, but I'm anticipating we will.
Excellent. So, the other things on the agenda on the work plan anyway, which can certainly be adjusted. So the policies, I did add the community use of school facilities policy because we need to add some outdoor space language. Remember, we talked about that?
Yeah.
Are you good? Well, should we bring back the school age entrance policy? One more time, we didn't vote on it tonight.
Yeah.
So we should bring that one back.
That was the first, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the first read.
Well, we passed it. We're
Yeah, it's a
adjusting the
revision. Right.
waiver,
We're-
so we need to bring it back though.
Yeah, we are adjusting the
Okay.
policy.
And my report, Angie is on for the CIA report next month. She's going to report, do the summer work recap. She's gonna have some results, some student academic results to share. And we're gonna try to disaggregate by economically disadvantaged, IEP, gender if we can, if we're not breaking any confidentiality, historically marginalized students, and then the MRA data from the leader in me. She's gonna bring back that report. And then we do have Tracy on here for a coordinator of diversity, equity, and inclusion report. So she's coming like quarterly, I think, unless you want her more.
What does historically marginalized mean?
Historically marginalized would mean students of color.
IEPs, any gender. So
anything
anybody in a
that would be-
protected class?
Yeah,
Yes.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna try to disaggregate that way and bring that data to the board. I think it's important.
We talked about food service, meeting the food service.
Yes,
Did you say, if you said that, I just missed it,
I
sorry.
didn't say it here. I
November.
asked Larry if he could bring, where did I put it on my Larry list?
Well, also it's the budget in October, correct?
The budget, well, we gotta put that on here.
Maybe it should be November then.
Items for discussion. Larry, when did we talk about you bringing Ian? Because we did talk about it.
We talked about October, but as the budget, it's up to the board. If you want to hear from Ian and the budget and all the other things that Christine just listed, or do you want to swap it around? Like however you want to do it.
I think,
Up to you.
I think we have a lot on
Okay.
already.
So budget, and we'll wait to meet Ian in November. Okay. Got it. Okay. That's all I have.
Okay. Do we have any need for executive session?
Do not.
Okay, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, Davis.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I want to thank everyone and apologize for the long meeting, but that's what happens when we have public participation.
Students, yeah, that was
Yeah.
great.
Thank you, everybody, for the long night.
All right, let me stop the recording.
Christine,
Yes, Nancy.
I have written to Larry